Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. We are back on the dev server and it's time to have a look at the naval portion of the next major update. Now, one of the things that a lot of people have been asking about is of course the French naval stuff. Understand that next update, it's only confirmed that one vehicle is coming in for France, so in this video we'll just have a look at that specific vehicle, then we'll do an individual video on the vehicle itself, but that's why we won't be covering the French tech tree yet, because it doesn't exist. So we'll have a look at that when it actually comes out. We'll start off with America with the USS Nevada. This is a rank 5 battle rating 6.7 battleship which is coming in, and it is a First World War, well, refitted Second World War battleship with a lot of big old refits on it. The vehicle itself is just before the Arizona, so this is where it sits in the tech tree. The ship has access to 2 sets of triple-mounted 14-inch guns and 2 sets of dual-mounted 14-inch guns in, simple setups on the front and the back. It also has access to a bunch of 5-inch dual mounts, so 8 of them in general, 4 on either side, and then 40 20mm guns and 8 quad 40mm guns too. So you can see the 40s in these setups here. So getting close to this thing from the air is not really going to happen, is probably the best way of noticing it, since the 5 inches have HEVT and then you have all the other guns which will just, fly off the handle as well. Just to give you an idea, of the firepower of a vehicle like this, it is very much a gun battleship of the good old American setups. They really enjoy their guns. When it comes to the general stuff, it's just kind of nuts. Eventually it'll hit something, but with all the proximity and everything and all that, and there you go. So absolutely annihilated the good old Ju-88. And of course we have all the big guns too, so not too bad. It also has a ton of armor on it, since it is a battleship. The vehicle has a belt of 343, then below it 281, 203 and 38. So still pretty tanky, the all or nothing setups that it has. Also 450mm on the front of the turrets as well, hoping to not get penned. There's some rolled cemented armors for the ammo elevators too, and also the smoke funnel which runs through the center of the machine. And then you have, of course, all of the ammo below deck, which is quite chunky. The vehicle itself is quite thick. It is actually quite a chunky vehicle just from looking from the top, but that means that it has a lot of firepower and also just a lot to give. The guns, I feel like, might be bugged because their reload doesn't seem to be working properly. But you can see here that they fire 1.5 rounds per minute as a standard setup for the 356mm. You do get APC-BC and also HE, so if you want to make a target regret its life or pop it like a weasel, then of course you can use either rounds. Then all the rest is just pretty standard. Doesn't have access to a catapult, surprisingly, like a lot of other machines. I'm guessing it's supposed to, it's just not ready yet on the vehicle. Then you got the Des Moines class, or just the Des Moines, I should say, of the Des Moines class. So this is a heavy cruiser that is coming in for the Americans. It is a new premium that's coming in at rank 4, so this will be able to research the whole of the tech tree in its entirety in the blue water setup. And what it basically is just a Helena on roids. So imagine you take all the best parts of the Helena and then you upgrade its guns. That's the Des Moines. It has 3 triple mounted sets of 8-inch guns, 6 dual mounted sets of 5 inches, 12 dual mounted 3 inches, and then also 12 20mm dual mounts as well. The main feature of this vehicle is the guns, because they are 8-inch of caliber, but also at the same time have a fire rate of 10 rounds per minute, and these are auto-loaded as well, so not affected by crew skills or anything like that. So you can hump a good old 8-inch round every 6 seconds. So if you get all of these guns on target, all 9 of them, you're able to do a ton of damage and over and over and over again, meaning that people will not be able to repair. It's not the heaviest heavy cruiser in the world, only with a belt of 147mm and 96mm below it, with a ton of anti-fragmentation armor to try and keep it going. 200mm on the front of the turrets, since they're pretty standard for the US sets of things, and also since it's a premium, you get all the modifications for free. And you get a ton of different rounds, standard ones for the 203mm and also the 127. So nothing too nuts there. But yeah, this one should be really fun. If you played the winter event and you got the Des Moines class, you'll know how fun this one will be, and it will be pretty decent. Germany gets a coastal boat in the form of the Fail, or the File, or the Pafil, whichever one you want, and it's a rank 5 battle rating 4.3. I like this one because it's very similar to the V990, which is one that they added more recently, which for some reason has a interesting setup there. So the vehicle, the Fail, is after the Hugin, which I suppose it's closer to in its overall setup, and it's just a kind of improvement on the Hugin, but not really too much. They'll be very similar. This one's a little bit faster in its overall setup. So pretty quick with the two engines that you can see here. And then also has two L70 40mm Bofors, which will rat-a-tat and do a ton of damage. And then of course the torpedoes as well, the Mark 8s. The Mark 8s do seem a little bit slow right now, only 58 kilometers through the water, which I wish was a little bit better. But apart from that, you also have the HEVT rounds, so you can take out planes as you feel like it. And also you have access to the artillery support modification, so you're able to kind of donk on some other ships. So this is a vehicle which can put out a ton of damage against other coastal machines, but against stuff like destroyers and things like that is really going to have a tough time to kind of deal with them. So definitely a good quick capper and a good annihilator, but that's really about it. The MPK PR204 comes in, and this one actually really piques my interest. The reason for this is its major armament. It's in the coastal tree once again, and it's between the 201M and also the Yennet. So if you want to get the Yennet or any of these two after it, then it might be worth researching it now. The 204, you can see on the front, so it has these good old rockets on the front, but its main armament is this turret on the back. It has two or a dual-mounted 57mm set of guns. These have a very nice fire rate on them, and also will put out a ton of damage. They're just at awkward angles because of course the bridge is in the way and also the back is in the way, so you're going to have to be angled like towards enemies like this or enemies like this, and it's just not going to be easy to do. You do also have the SET or the SET-40 torpedoes as well, and the rocket launcher is the RBU 6000. Now the RBU 6000 is very powerful. It can actually annihilate destroyers and stuff like that, and on the 57 as well you get HE, and also you get APC-BC. So if this is actually one of the first vehicles of its type which could take out destroyers pretty efficiently, if you know how to use the if you know first of all how to use the rockets, you know, and firing them off, and then also to use the 57s with the good old HE to be able to fire them off. So yeah, it seems like a vehicle which could be quite useful in that regard. Everything is controlled by you though, so that's something. You can see there with the 6000s, you can just annihilate destroyers. And then with the other guns, once you get them on target, like you can actually just wreck stuff as well. So this is actually one of my main picks when it comes to Naval next update. I don't know how its survivability is going to be, and of course the angles are quite awkward on a lot of the different areas, but you can see it has the main guns with the HE and also with the AP, which is nice. It has these rockets which can just one-tap stuff and have a bit of fun with it, and yeah, it has the radar just to help it out too. So there really isn't a downside to this thing, unless I'm overthinking it. But this one's looking really nice. It really is. And the Soviet naval stuff is generally pretty fun, so if you haven't got into it, I would highly recommend it. For Britain, you got the Whitby. I actually used to live near Whitby, and it's a lovely place. They actually have a goth week, if you didn't know, just as a little bit of a tidbit. So the HMS Whitby comes in, and it is incredibly similar to the Blackpool, which already exists in the game. The Blackpool has two dual set of 4.5-inch guns on the front, a dual 40, and also some torpedoes on the back. Where the Whitby, it has the dual 4.5-inch gun, it has the dual 40s, but instead of the torpedoes, it has access to this limbo mortar. And this limbo mortar maybe fires about 800, 900 meters ahead of it, maybe a kilometer ahead of it, which is just not great. You can see that the radius of fragment dispersion 117 meters, and generally you're just flopping once again mortared stuff in random places and not really doing too much. So you've basically got a set of 40s, which is nice with the HE and the AP, and also the actual 4.5 inches with a good reload, which are going to be your main source of damage. HE, SAP, HETF, and HEVT, so whatever you face, you'll be able to do some damage to. The problem is you are already outgunned by most destroyers at the BR that you find yourself, so unless you get down and dirty with the coastal machines, you're not going to be too good. It should actually have, it should be pretty tanky though, just because it should have the what I call destroyer DMs, and also has a fire director, which is pretty standard as well, and of course the tracking radar to help you work out where stuff is coming in from, including the search radar too. So has a lot of more modern bells and whistles, just lacks firepower, which is the problem. Then a surprise addition, the Terra Nova. So the Terra Nova is a vehicle which is at rank 5. It's a frigate for the British, but it's actually a Canadian vehicle. And this is, once again, quite modern. It has the search radar on top of it. It has the fire director, which once again doesn't have a great calculation time. But it has two sets of dual-mounted 3-inch guns. But these are different 3-inch guns. So the first set are Mark 33s, which you can find on the back here in this setup of a turret. And then you have two which are actually Mark 6s, the 3-inch 70s. Which are in the front ones. Now, it just seems odd, because the first stage on this thing, it fires 90 rounds a minute, so it can really chuck them out. And then these ones back here, obviously, the reload rate is a lot slower. So this is going to be your main punching arm, whereas this is kind of your backup, which is quite nice. But it's just odd having the same caliber of gun, but just different mounts and different setups on the same machine. You usually don't see that in vessels, but the Terra Nova has it, so pretty interesting overall. You got the engines in the middle. You don't really have any armor on the vehicle. It's just going to all rely on this set of 3 inches on the front and how much damage you can do to the enemy. And unfortunately, because of the fact that you have two different sets of 3-inch guns, you only have access to HEVT, which seems like a bit of an oversight. Hopefully that's changed. Hopefully you get some more rounds, but we'll have to look at it going forward. Then you have for Japan the Nanohi. Now the Nanohi is a premium vehicle, but it's very similar to one that we already have in the standard tech tree. It's basically a slightly worse version because it removes some capabilities of it. The Nanohi is a Hatsuharu class, and the Hatsuharu is already in the game here that you can see. So they're basically at the same BR, and if you like the Hatsuharu, you like this thing. It has access to 5 127mm, one dual set here, another dual set here, and the other single here. Then also has the torpedoes in the center, and they have a reload attached to them as well. The secondary armaments are 2 dual 25mm, never going to be that useful at AA, but at least look nice on the vehicle itself. The 127mm for Japan are pretty good. They just have a pretty low base of fire, which is a problem, and also lack lack a lot of different types of rounds. This one is the same. So it only has 127 millimeter HE and also HETF. So no SAP, no AP, no VT or anything like that on them. And then, of course, you only have 425, so it doesn't really matter what you bring along. You're still going to get annihilated. Then it does have long lances, so it does have the Type 93 torpedoes, which is good. 20 kilometers travel distance, 91 kilometers an hour in the water. So these are really good at long range and overall will work great. So the Nanohi's looking nice. Pity it's a rank 2, so you can't use it for all dailies and specials. Then for France. So France gets its pre-order vehicle in for the naval forces. As we talked about, France's navy doesn't exist yet, but this is at least confirmed as a blue water machine. It's a rank 2, battle rating 4.3, would be nice if it was rank 3. And in the dev blog, one of the things they emphasized was the fact that this had a slow reload, and that would be one of the problems with it. I've got to be honest with you, the reload ain't that bad. 12 rounds per minute on the first stage for a crew that hasn't even been moved, and also for these 138.6mm guns, they do a decent amount of damage to vehicles that are around the place. It does have torpedoes as well, has access to a dual 37 and 2 dual 13.2mm with 4 single 37s backing that up as well, so pretty decent defense in the form of AA, but having 5 138mm hopefully will pack a punch for the vehicle. Has a lot of dead area in the center of it, so that means that the ammo racks are pretty bunched up either side, so it'll be easy to shoot at this thing, but overall I still think it should be okay. The modifications for it are pretty standard. You do get an SAP for the 138mm, which is really good. That will probably become the standard round against destroyers since its Tier 2 equivalent is still pretty high. Then the 37mm only gets access to HE as well. The torpedoes are the 23 DTs, so 1923 DT torpedoes. They have an okay travel distance, not the best, and the maximum speed in water is fine as well, so overall pretty average. The major issue with this thing that I've seen is the fact that its turret rotation speed is god-awful. You can see there the targeting speed is 5 degrees per second, targeting vertical speed is also 5 degrees per second. That is really, really rough on the vehicle overall, so that's a bit of a problem. But that's all the naval vehicles that are coming to the game, at least from the dev server, in the next major update. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Millie Draper, Juan the Panda, Nick R. Cupila, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Merciless Reaper, Orange Tail, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Moxie B. Young, Peter Grayling, Jerry Provolt, Bareen, Alan Hacker, Sem Arslan, Uncle Bean, Derek R., and Lafouche for supporting the channel.